Hey guys, it's Griever, bringing you guys another type of video. That is of course about One Piece. And it is of course about the Wano arc. Because what are we talking about right now? Well, the reverie is over and Wano is full underway. So we are going to be seeing predictions, discussions, theories about any number of things regarding Wano specifically. Now, that's not to say that other YouTubers and other reviewers won't be making other types of videos. Of course they will. We want to know what's going on with everything outside of the Wano arc as well in One Piece. However, most of it will be Wano-centric. For example, what's going to happen with Kaido? What's going to happen, in regards to the Shogun? What about Zoro? Will Mihawk show up? Will Marco and Nekomamushi and stuff finally show up? When will they show up? All these things. When will the Straw Hats all reunite? There are so many things to go over. Now, I decided to pick this particular topic because I feel like no one that I can seem to find on the Reddit forums and stuff has actually gone through a whole list of who they believe and where is the other supreme grade swords, the 12 Saijo no Wazamono grades. Now, I know I probably butchered that. I think it's Saijo o Wazamono grade. I don't know. I'm very bad at pronouncing my Japanese, guys, of course, as you very well know from all my reviews. Now, these 12 great swords have 2 confirmed. That's right. We are over 900 chapters into this series, and we are almost, I think it must be 800 chapters since we understood, and Tashigi and Zoro and everyone, it was already explained very early on about the graded swords, the 21, the 12, the 50, and the ridiculous amount of others. But, with the exception of Mihawk's Yoru, which is considered one of the 12 supreme grade swords. And then Shodai Katetsu, when we find out all about the Katetsu blades with Zoro and all that stuff. Those are the only 2 known. Now, I'm going to just stand back and say, well, I think we all understand, now that we've seen Nidai Katetsu wielded by Luffy, I say, but showcased, and looking at the hilt design and the guard and all that stuff, I think it's very easy to state that the Gandhi Gorosei swordsman that is Shodai Katetsu. For everyone thinking that the Shogun had it, or that one of Kaido's men had it, or that it was in Wano, I really doubt that Oda, even though this will be a very big arc, I really doubt he's going to just bam bam, here's the other Katetsu blades after 700 plus chapters of first being introduced to them. It's very, very unlikely that will be the case. So I am going to bank on the theory that, once again, we know confirmed that Yoru is in the possession of the world's greatest swordsman, Mihawk. That's one. And if we can just assume for a moment that at the very least, the Gorosei Gandhi looking guy definitely has one of the 12 supreme grade swords. If we can all agree on that theory, whether it's Shodai Katetsu or not, I think it's fair to say that is definitely a supreme grade sword. So that leaves 10. Now this video is going to be about the other great 10 supreme grade swords. Now, let's get right off the list, right off the bat here. Let's talk about the ones that I believe are obvious. And then we can narrow down the possibilities for what's happening to the other ones. Now, once again, guys, there is no basis for this other than my own personal opinion, but suffice it to say, the next few names will be ones that I considered it would seem almost impossible that they did not possess a supreme grade sword, whether noted in the series at this point or not. The first on this list would be Shanks's Griffin. Shanks is considered by far, by most, to be the most powerful character currently in the story. With the death of Whitebeard and Roger no longer around, it is highly, highly considered, and Rayleigh getting older, as well as Garp. It is highly considered that Shanks is currently one-on-one the strongest character. Now, once again, a lot of people have said because in the SBS, Shanks versus Kaido, Oda stated that Kaido in a one-on-one battle wins. Now, once again, I think as we've seen clashes and Kaido has been defeated and captured before and such like that, suffice it to say that regarding Kaido, that's a bit of an oddball thing. However, most people in the community admit that Shanks is definitely, if not the most powerful, one of the top 3 most powerful characters in the verse. If we can all agree on that, and even if you can't, he's still one of the members of the Yonko, considered some of the strongest pirates in the verse. He is also the rival to Mihawk. Now, a lot of people consider that Mihawk took this title of World's Greatest Swordsman from Shanks. That is a possibility. We still don't know the backstory about that, and how did that losing his arm really affect them? Was this a by default? Was their battle an unconcluded and no one knew who was really the better swordsman at the end of the day? And that's when Shanks relinquished the idea of being able to fight with his wrong hand, because it's stated or suggested that Shanks was left-handed and he lost his left arm. That being said, that little advantage or edge in battle would have changed the flow. We aren't fully aware, but I think it's very easy to say that Shanks and Griffin, clearly he maintains, if someone in this story is going to showcase another one of the 12 Supreme Grade swords, and I do believe, I don't think we're going to see all the graded swords in the series, but I would be disappointed if Oda did not at the very least give us the location or the owner of all the 12. The 12 being the most powerful, I think we're almost owed that in a sense. So Shanks, once again, a quick rundown, being one of the Yonko, considered one of the most powerful pirates in the world, a swordsman in his own right, a named sword, and also rival to the world's greatest swordsman in swordsmanship. It would almost be ludicrous to believe that he does not possess one, whether it's Griffin or not, which why wouldn't it be, but Shanks clearly has one of them. So now we're down to 9 swords. Now out of the other 9, what's another one? Well, how about the world's strongest man? The one to rival Roger. How about Whitebeard's Bicento? Now, a lot of people were saying for a lot of years that it was swords. It was only the swords that could be supreme grade because they were considered supreme grade swords. Not true. They are supreme grade blades in a more literal sense. Because, as we've seen, they are not all katanas, though many of them most likely are, but they do not necessarily have to be swords, especially with the explanation we got not that many chapters ago, showcasing and reminding us about the different grades of swords. And we saw that they were referred to as blades, and we saw an image of a Bicento in the explanation images. I believe it was the Tengu character, Hitetsu, while he was explaining to Luffy all about the different graded swords. I believe it was in that conversation that this was showcased. So I would like to say, once again, even though not stated, if Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, considered by many to be if anybody was going to be Pirate King, now we all know why Whitebeard did not become Pirate King and blah blah blah. However, Whitebeard would definitely not use anything less than a supreme grade sword. Mihawk challenged Whitebeard. Shanks and Whitebeard clashed. These are things, and he clashed with Roger many, many times, and he clashed with the Marines and everybody. Whitebeard, once again, we have to go a little bit off of power scaling, because who do we know has a supreme grade sword? The world's greatest swordsman. Who can stand on par with the world's greatest swordsman in terms of owning such a fabulous sword like Yoru? Well, it would clearly be his rival Shanks, would definitely possess one. And what about the man that Mihawk wanted to test his ability against? Not necessarily defeat, but he wanted to test his mettle against Whitebeard, recognizing Whitebeard's true strength and ability. And with Whitebeard possessing a bladed weapon, and it is quite a decorated one, similar to Yoru, I am under the firm belief that Whitebeard possessed another one of the Supreme Grade swords in his Baisento. Now, that leaves us down to 8. Now we have 8. So we so far have Yoru, we have Shodai Katetsu, we have Griffin, and we have Whitebeard's Baisento. So now we have 8 left. What could the other 8 be? Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that the Shogun of Wano. There is no way we will not see one or not more Supreme Grade swords in the Wano arc. That is almost a certainty, ladies and gentlemen. That is almost a definitive certainty that we will see this. This is the country of blades. This is the country of samurai and swordsmen. This is almost a guarantee. Now, a lot of people have been suggesting that the Shogun might use a 3-sword style, similar to Zoro. Or he might use double swords, similar to Vista. Or he may have one of each graded swords. He might have 4 swords on him, one of each grade, depending on how bad the enemy is or something like that. How heinous is their crime. This could be a possibility. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Shogun at the very least possesses one. Or at the very least, someone in the Wano arc will possess one as far as the enemy combatants. Whether it's one of Kaido's calamities, or whether it's the Shogun himself, or perhaps a vassal of the Shogun, the #1 swordsman in Wano. That might be another title, we don't know. But that could easily be another title. That there is the world's strongest swordsman, but there is also, from the country of swordsmen and warriors, there is their strongest warrior, or their strongest swordsman. And it would be, once again, remiss from the country of swords and samurai to not possess one of the Supreme Grade swords. So, whether it's the Shogun or someone or another villainous character in the Wano arc, I think that's another guarantee. That it's most likely the Shogun Orichi, but it could be somebody else. Unlikely, but let's just go with the Shogun for a moment. And while we're on the topic of Wano, why don't we talk about Oden. Oden Kazuki, Oden, from the Kazuki clan. A lot of people believe that he is dead. And even if that's the case, I am not one of those people. I believe that Oden faked his death in some manner or managed to escape, and he is the character. I believe it was Tekking or Joy Boy brought up the fact that the person sitting back on the lighthouse island with Laboon and all that such, and the doctor, was that person was indeed Oden, running and hiding for whatever reason, or trying to live out his days away from Wano, that he had done his duty or something like that. Whatever his motivation. However, he is still Oden of the Kazuki clan. He is still, at the time, remember, the Kazuki clan were the ones who ruled over Wano. They were the leaders of Wano. They were the daimons. They were the Kazuki clan was the family of Wano. Now, of course, a lot of things happened. Of course, him leaving for, he was both on Roger's ship and then he was on Whitebeard's ship and things like that. I believe he was on Whitebeard's. That might have only been Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, but I believe Oden also served for a time on Whitebeard's ship. This is, if we can accept the fact that the Shogun, or someone of that level, definitely possesses a Supreme Grade sword, then would it not stand to reason that the previous head would possess a Supreme Grade sword? Assuming that, once again, Oden was indeed a warrior. He was on the Roger Pirates. Now, necessarily being on the Roger Pirates does not necessarily mean that you have to be all-powerful and a badass. Though, it's unlikely that the leader of the Wano country, the samurai warrior from Wano, was not one of the most powerful swordsmen of that age. And he was on Roger's crew. That being the case, would it not be acceptable to believe that Oden also possessed, at one time, a Supreme Grade sword? Now, during all this, perhaps the Shogun currently has Oden's original Supreme Great Sword. Perhaps after, let's assume for a moment that he is truly dead and he took it off of his melting corpse. Possible. But for the moment, let's believe that the Shogun has a Supreme Great Sword and that Oden has one of the Supreme Great Swords. Whether it was lost or locked away or one of his vassals has it or he is still alive and possesses it, I believe that both the Shogun and Oden possess each a Supreme Grade Sword. As for the last one that I believe is almost concrete. Now once again, the Oden Shogun sword could be the same one, but we'll go through the actual possibilities that I believe are possible but could be proven wrong later on down the line. The last one that I believe is almost a certainty is Rayleigh, the Dark King Rayleigh. First mate of the Roger Pirates, Luffy's mentor, and once again, an overall badass. On the same class as Whitebeard and Shanks. Now, is the sword that he wielded that we've seen, is that one? Maybe, maybe not. Especially since we've seen only 2 confirmed. And that would be Yoru, which is very decorative, the black blade, giant thing looking like a Templar blade. All the other of these swords are very basic in looks that we've seen, and even though Shanks's Griffin is slightly different, it's very basic in its design, more of a classic looking cutlass, rapier sort of hilt and guard over a very basic blade. The only other one that looks any different is, once again, Whitebeard's Bicento. But we're going down a fair list of katanas. That's not to say that the Supreme Grade swords could not be mostly katanas. Of course they could. But when you first are introduced, when you look at the first introduction to one, which is Yoru, which is such a unique sword design that doesn't look like any sword of, European, Japanese, Chinese, of South American, any type of, it's just its own design, you start to have a feeling of all these swords that look relatively basic, with maybe a cool guard and a unique hilt or something like that, but overall are just a basic katana blade. It begs the question, are all Supreme Great Swords, is Yoru just the most fancy, elegant looking one? So that's where the Supreme Grade sword list goes down a little bit. Now, going back to Rayleigh, if once again we can accept that the strongest man in the world at the time, being Whitebeard, one of the most powerful pirates renowned through the world, was Whitebeard, the Yonko Whitebeard. And it's clear that the rival of Mihawk, Shanks, would have one. Now, wouldn't it make sense that one of Whitebeard's era, one that sat beside the Pirate King himself, and is known as a proficient swordsman, the Dark King, considered one of the most powerful people in the verse currently, even though of his true age, even though, once again, age is really hindering him in a sense, he still can fight with some of the best? It seems to me that it's unlikely that Rayleigh would not possess such a sword. Now, before we go any further in this list, because this video is kind of dragging on and I'm carpet bombing myself a little bit over the place, kind of jumping through hoops a bit at this point, guys, let's just do a quick rundown once again. The 2 that are confirmed, Yoru and Shodai Katetsu. So we're working out of 10. Now, I've named 5 that I believe are almost a guarantee. That is Shanks, Whitebeard, Shogun, Rayleigh, and Oden. Those 5 characters, to me, would have, at one point, possessed a blade of the Supreme Grade quality. Now, if I once again cannot guarantee this. I am not Oda. But that is what I firmly believe. That this to me is almost a must. To me, they can't be anything lower or worse. Before we continue the list, I want to mention something that Mihawk stated to Zoro about the capacity of black blades and armament Haki and all that such. That any blade can be a black blade if you – learn how to master Haki. Alright. By that logic, though, because some people are going to say, well, Rayleigh is such a master of Haki, and Whitebeard and Shanks and all these people are clearly such great masters of Haki, they don't actually need to possess a supreme grade sword for them to be, for that to be the case. All right, that is certainly one reasoning. It's sound reasoning and a possibility. But to that I say two things. One, if not them, who? If not some of the greatest, most revered characters, most powerful, right, characters in the entire verse, then who possesses these 10 swords? Are they hauled up in a vault somewhere? And possibility. And the other reason against that about the whole Black Blades thing is the fact that, yes, he's right. With armament Haki, you can turn any sword into a Black Blade. But then by that logic, no one who was not if you're a master of armament Haki, then Mihawk has no use for Yoru. Why possess a supreme grade sword? Why does the Gorosei possess a supreme grade sword? Why would anybody? Why would Zoro, if he has truly been able to master a version of armament Haki, why would he require to use any graded swords? Why would you need a graded sword at all? Because I believe, number one, this is just a theory, but I believe that if two members clash, if I have a supreme grade sword and I armament Haki up, that is far superior than, let's say, just a basic Wazamono grade with the same amount of armament Haki, because the blade itself is already one of the greatest. It's one of the 12 supreme grade swords. It was crafted to be the strongest, to be the best. So even if you add, it's kind of like, think of it as a video game, where if you drink a potion or you have an item that ups your weapon attack by 5. All right, I up my weapon attack by 5. If my weapon attack is 100, then it's 105, which is good. But if my weapon attack is 200, then I'm still adding the same 5, but my base attack of my weapon was already 200. So it's far better. So what I believe in saying this is that I compare this to armament Haki. Someone's ability at armament Haki, of course, is dependent on the person, but their armament Haki can only go so far. If you start off with a base, if I start up with a kitchen knife versus a supreme grade sword, even someone like Mihawk, in the end of the day, Yoru is going to be more durable, stronger, and more powerful a blade than the kitchen knife, regardless how much armament Haki and master of the blade he is in an actual fight against a true strong opponent such as Shanks or someone. So with all that explanation out of the way halfway through the video, which kind of breaks the trend here, once again, the list, we've got 7, we need another 5. Now these last 5 supreme grade swords, guys, these 5 swords, once again, I already listed off the 2 that we know of, and potentially the holder of one, and the other 5 that I think clearly do possess one. As far as the other 5 go, I have a unlikely theory, but I'm just going to share it with you now before we get into potential candidates for the other last 5 swords. And that is a Lord of the Rings thing with the Dwarven Rings. That potentially they don't have an owner at this point. They have been lost. They are either locked away or lost or have somehow been destroyed. Just like the Dwarven Rings in Lord of the Rings, some were consumed by Dragonfire, others repossessed by Sauron, things of that nature. That is highly possible. That potentially some of these swords are just no longer there, even though their names would still be known by all the people, like it would be recorded, but they're lost, or no one knows of their whereabouts. And potentially during the story, we will never actually get confirmation of where all the swords are. As I said, I don't think Oda will not reveal if they are lost. He will reveal that. He will say, the last of the 3 great swords have been lost to time and no one has seen them since, this one was lost during Roger's time, this one was lost well before anybody's time, things like that. And this one was lost during the Void Century, something of that nature. That, to me, is a possibility, because it would also, in all honesty, help Oda from coming up with another 5 fantastic swordsmen on the level that deserve to possess such a fantastic blade. Now, alright, now that we have that little theory out of the way, and you guys can post in the comments below whether you think that this theory is viable or not. But my other candidates are, well, for one, there is Hitetsu, Tengu Hitetsu, who is, once again, the descendant of the great swordsmith himself, and he was revealed to possess Nidai Kitetsu, which Luffy kind of ran off with in some of the latest chapters. Now, what is the potential of that leaf, flower, hilted guard blade is potentially a supreme grade sword? It could be. Now I believe it's unlikely. He did claim that it is a graded sword. It is a named sword. But he did not tell us what grade. It's more than likely it's of the great class, similar to Nidai Kitetsu, rather than being a supreme grade sword. However, you would think also the swordsmith and descendant of the Kitetsus would possess such a thing. If not Shodai Kitetsu, that they would probably possess another supreme grade sword. It's a possibility, but once again, this is the list of people who potentially could have one, but I'm not convinced that it is. That's one candidate. Another one is someone in the Revolutionary Army. One of the higher-ups in the Revolutionary Army, such as Dragon, who we've never seen in combat, but if somebody else outside of Wano, because once again, the great thing about these is that we first thought that they were swords. And even if they are swords, would you not like to see an Excalibur-inspired supreme grade sword? Is Yoru, and if my thinking is correct, are we going to go off the assumption that a couple of plain-looking rapiers and Yoru and a Baisento are the only unique-looking supreme grade blades? Are we going to assume that the rest are katanas? Because that to me would almost cheapen it out. I believe that Oda is planning us to see a very unique blades. Potentially something in reference to a scythe of some variety. Maybe something once again based off Excalibur. I don't believe that the rest of the blades are simply going to be, even if they are curved. What about a true scimitar? What about once again, a medieval looking sword, a bastard sword, a broad-handed sword, a claymore, something like that? I believe that we are going to see such blades be on the level of a supreme grade sword, that they won't all be katanas. Because Oda has never stuck, right now we are in Wano, but Oda has never stuck to Japanese roots. He's always expanded himself. He's always gone and done research to different cultures and different mythologies. I mean, look at Elbath, look at all these other places that he's grabbed different, he's definitely looked at Grimm's fairy tales, things like that. He's always gone across multiple mythos to find all that he can, to find all the different, to make the story the most the most real, and the most exciting. To limit something so important and integral to the series, in a sense, to simple, all Japanese swords and rapiers would just, I think it would really douse the hype. So, once again, Hitetsu could potentially have one. Once again, someone in the Revolutionary Army, such as Dragon. Now, if I say the Revolutionary Army being a standard factor, if they must possess one, then where would the other one go? Well, how about someone in the Marines? I hesitate to say someone else in the Marines, because the Gorosei. Because of the Gandhi-looking, samurai-looking Gorosei member, possessing, to my knowledge, the Shodai Kitetsu, I find it very unlikely that someone lower ranked than an admiral would possess one. We know that Garp does not use swords. Garp and Sengoku would be the only ones that I could foresee being someone that is not an admiral in the Marines possessing such a level of greatness. The only other potential is Green Bull. That Green Bull is a swordsman and possesses one, though I find that very unlikely as well. But, once again, this is a list of potential candidates for the last 5. So we have Hitetsu's blade, that he did confirm was a graded sword. We have someone high-ranking in the Revolutionary Army being a swordsman at that point. It could be Dragon or it could be the Revolutionary Army swordsman. It seems like most crews have a number one swordsman among them. So that's a potential. Another potential is the Marines, the Green Bull, or someone else. But that, once again, is even more unlikely. One that I want to bring up that I do think is likely in reference to the fact that some of these swords cannot just be katanas. Some of them need to be broadswords, maybe even axes or something. Well, what about a warrior of Elbaf? What about Elbaf? What about them? I believe that Odin, Thor, someone along those lines, maybe does Thor have his hammer? Because if we're going off of the stereotypes that Oda is drawing from Norse mythology for that country, then at some point we're going to see him. He's going to have a hammer, and I would bet you if he's possessing that hammer, or if they stick to Odin possessing a great spear, it's highly likely that one of the warriors of Elbaf has one of the Supreme Grade swords. That one is much more likely than the other ones I've listed off so far. Another candidate is, of course, Blackbeard's pirate Shiryu of the Rain, or however you say his name, Shiryu of the Rain. He has an Odachi or a Nodachi or whatever that he used to kill a lot of the impaled down prisoners. It was returned to him after he escaped with Blackbeard. No, I don't see it, but once again, a potential. Some people have listed him as a big potential because he's going to be, if not Mihawk, he will be the opponent for Zoro at the end of the story. Because once again, when they face off against the Blackbeard pirates, the Straw Hats versus Blackbeards at the end, it's going to be, those two are going to go down. You know, Blackbeard and Luffy are clearly going to be fighters, but these two, he and Zoro will be the one clashing. So potential, maybe. But if he possesses it, he got it during the 2-year time skip. I don't believe he possessed one at the time. And once again, impelled down, Magellan being very powerful, but does not possess, just uses his devil fruit, doesn't seem to be a swordsman of any regard. So, another one is, well, how about the Pirate King? How about Gold D. Roger himself? Well, there are two arguments for that. In the same breath that I said about Odin and the Shogun possessing potentially the same sword, potentially Roger did, because we've only seen Roger in a few flashbacks, and it looked like he did use a sword, a cutlass of some variety. It didn't look that great, but at the time, of course, Oda wasn't drawing, you know, all the details as much and looking that far into the future as much. But it's, once again, it's more unlikely than Rayleigh possessing one of them. But if so, if Roger was a swordsman, then he would have been one of the most proficient swordsmen of his era, being the Pirate King. If we can all assume that Roger was Pirate King, not in just name alone, but he was one of the strongest, and he clashed with the best, and he wasn't just a coward who ran away. He wasn't a buggy character. Alright, he was a Whitebeard, he was a Shanks, he was a Garb, he was a Rayleigh. He could potentially possess one of the 12 grade swords. Now, once again, bringing up the whole Odin Shogun thing that I mentioned earlier, potentially Rayleigh did not possess a 12th grade sword, one of the 12 grade swords at the time, and that he currently has Roger's old sword, which is one. There's another way of looking at this, is that they both possessed a Supreme Grade sword, and that he kept Roger's sword, his captain's sword, you know, a prized possession probably somewhere safe, and he still uses his own sword, or that it's connected even further down the line to Shanks, and that Shanks was gifted Griffin, and Griffin is, once again, a 12th grade sword, but possessed to Roger. The unfortunate thing about these somewhat likely scenarios, somewhat not, is that this, like the Odin Shogun thing, takes a number away from the swords, from the total we're trying to reach, rather than actually add up as Roger being a potential. But if we can go off the reasoning that he did have one, Rayleigh also possessed one in his own right, and Roger's sword is not Shanks' current sword, and that Rayleigh or Shanks or somebody possesses it and kept it as a treasure and no one's using it currently in the story, then that could be one of the sort of the similar thing back to the theory about the Dwarven Ring sort of idea, is that this one has no owner right now. It's in the story, but it's not in use and no one knows where it is but the person who keeps it, but they are not the owner or user of it. That could be a potential. Another one I had was Zoro's teacher, but once again, I think the Wado Ichimonji was his prized possession. I don't believe that he possessed one. Maybe he did back in the day, but a lot of people put way too much stock into Zoro's backstory and the Wado Ichimonji and all the, and Kuina and all that stuff. I think people read way too much into that for my liking. So I don't see that being the case. Another potential is one of Kaido's calamities. If the Shogun possesses one, maybe one of Kaido's calamities is from Wano, or maybe one of Kaido's calamities is a swordsman. Because when you think about it, Marco, Ben Beckman, and Katakuri are not swordsmen. Now, you don't need to follow the guise of you have a captain and the first mate being a powerful swordsman, but it seems to be something that would be easy to do. So, in my mind, one of the three calamities, and probably the top calamity, could very well be a swordsman, and he could possess one. That's very possible, because we know that Kaido is very unlikely to be a swordsman. Very, very unlikely is Kaido disciplined enough to be a swordsman. Now, these are a lot of potentials. And the last one I have is 5th Division Commander Vista, of the Whitebeard, formerly of the Whitebeard Pirates. The problem with this is that he is a dual blade user. And for him to possess two seems highly, highly unlikely. And once again, they are very basic in their design. They are very, very basic in their design. There's nothing too special about them. They look quite similar to a simple blade like this. They're not so... It's very... See, you'd like to think that the top swordsman of the Whitebeard Pirates would have a supreme grade sword. But once again, it is not a requirement to be a great swordsman to have them. Look at Zoro. Zoro is probably one of the best swordsmen in the series, definitely one that we've seen so far. And he still does not possess a supreme grade sword. So, by that logic, it's not a necessity that Vista possesses them, especially being dual wielding. Now, a very unlikely theory I thought of is that potentially these are similar to how Bleach did it, in the sense that these two blades are actually originally of one blade. And Vista, being of the two-sword style, somehow managed to find, perhaps on Wano, perhaps somewhere, perhaps someone recrafted the blades into two. He took one giant blade and maybe one great bastard sword, that was giant and huge, and perhaps they reforged it into two cutlass-style blades, rapier katana-style blades, for Vista's own proficient sword style. Unlikely, but he could have. And once again, one of these swords could be of a supreme grade sword, and one not, similar to how Zoro carries around multiple swords, but they are of different grades. It's possible Vista is also in that category. Now, that, I believe, is a full, extensive list of where all the potential swords of the supreme grade class are. All 12. Now, could they be... Now, if we go at the very end here, guys, those are the candidates of the people who could possess them, that I believe. Now, going at the very end of this video here, guys, because I know this has been a long video, and listening to me rant, I'm surprised if you stick around. However, if my theory about this being the Dwarven Ring thing, and that some of them are not actually possessed by anybody, which would make it more realistic, actually, and more likely for Oda to do. That way he's not so focused on cleaning up, tying up loose ends, about, okay, I got 6 more swords to get through, and I'm like, it'd be much easier for him to say, 3 have been lost into the sea, 2 have been destroyed by fire or something. It'd be very easy for him to say that a few have been lost and or destroyed, or, once again, bottom of the sea. It's potential. It's definitely a potential. I actually like that idea more and more the more I think about it, because once again, it makes it more realistic. That some are lost. Some have been broken. Some have never been remade. Some have been lost in the sea where nobody knows it. The tide took it. One could be on the moon, locked away somewhere. One could be in the king's vault under Marijois there, where the straw hat is in that frozen chamber. There could be one or two or more swords in there. That one's a little more unlikely. Yeah, I mean, once again, I think Elbaf is likely. I think we'll see at least one or two show up in the Wano arc, and yeah, I think that those are most likely. Now, once again, I believe that I'm fairly confident in the 7. I mean, 2 are already counted, but I believe out of the 10 that are definitely unknown, I believe I accounted for 5 of them with almost a certainty, being Shanks, Whitebeard, and Rayleigh for certain, or you can make the argument Rayleigh, Roger, but come on now. And definitely the Shogun, or, I mean, you could do Shogun / Greatest Swordsman in Wano sort of idea. And Oden. I believe Oden definitely possessed a Supreme Grade sword. Whether that, once again, is the same sword that maybe the Shogun stole off of Oden at some point, who knows, but definitely those ones. So the other 5 candidates, what do you think? Please, guys, I haven't seen anybody make a video like this, so that's why I'm kind of jumping all over the place, and I don't really have much in the way of theories behind this, but I just like to pose the question. Who do you think possesses the 12 Supreme Grade swords? Where are the other 10 swords? Or, by that logic, if you don't believe that the Gandhi samurai-looking guy of the Gorosei possesses Shodai Kitetsu, does the Shogun have it? Does Kaido possess it? Does Oden still have it somewhere? Who knows? It'd be very interesting to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Tell me which ones that I've listed that you agreed with. Tell me which ones you disagreed with. And please, post your own theories, comments, and list in the comment section down below. Once again, this has been Griever with a sword explanation video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, as always. And we'll see you back here next time. See ya.